When I was asked to make a few remarks today, I have to admit that I was a bit hesitant because publicity is not my thing. But my friend Terry Marisho has always reminded me that I am the last surviving minister ex-minister of Maurice Bishop's cabinet, who the days before the fateful 19th of October came down on the side of Maurice by virtue of our resignations in support of Maurice. Indeed, I do recall that on October the 14th, when I met with Unison Whiteman, George Louison, Kenrick Radix, and my dear friend and parishioner, Norris Bain, to assess the situation at that time. And we took that decision to resign in support of Maurice. I was given the responsibility of taking the scribbled resignations to the then Cabinet Secretary, Mrs. Marcella David, who I recall is quite distraught in receiving them. Full disclosure, I was given the nickname, I should say, as the Lollipop Minister of the Revolution. And who else would give me that name but one Maurice Bishop? We actually competed in cabinet for the worst possible handwriting. I'm not too sure whoever won that. Entertaining the views and of others, an inclusion of citizens willing to contribute to nation building, who may not necessarily be seen as politically aligned to the decision makers of the day, is something which we need to adopt, and which sadly the PRG was not totally tolerating of that. We cannot tiptoe around these issues. We have to be very honest about it. If we want to build a better Grenada, if we want to learn from the mistakes that were made.
Now going to go on to the editorial of the week, and we're going to talk about the Patriots and the Patriots. Of course, the former is found in the land of empty platitudes and symbolism, while the latter is found in the vineyards of the tangible and substantial doing the essential work of patriotism to make their country a better place. One such man who lived the ideals of patriotism was the late Lyden Rhamdhanny, whose untimely passing last week left many in the national community saddened and sorrowful. Rhamdhanny was one of the true champions of Grenada. He believed in the idea of Grenadianism and was genuinely committed to it. During his tenure as a public servant minister of tourism during the Grenada Revolution, Rhamdhanny was at the forefront of attracting tourism to Grenada at a time when the country's reputation was taking an imperialist beating abroad at the hands of those who attempted to convince visitors that Grenada was not a safe place to visit. Now, Rhamdhanny, during his tenure as Grenada's tourism minister, was very passionate about his work, and for him, it was not about ideology, but about Grenada. Rhamdhanny, therefore, had a keen sense of Grenada's place in the Caribbean and the world. His entrepreneurial background meant that many options were available to him in the private sector, but nonetheless still chose to serve his country at a national level. His contribution to Grenada stemmed from his conviction that getting involved in the country's development was the best response to the challenges faced by the society at the time. In the words of Didacus Jules, quote, "In those momentous years of the revolution, when hope burned bright and the horizons of possibility seemed infinite, Lyden stood at the crossroads of government and private enterprise, a veritable bridge navigating the imperatives of social equity and individual entrepreneurship, helping to define and exemplify how private businesses can exercise social responsibility and creating space within which local businesses can prosper as a productive sector, adding value rather than simply being a predatory distributive sector, unquote. In a myriad of other ways, his calm and deliberate presence embodied the best ideals of a quintessential Grenadian patriot. The Bub Report, therefore, extends its deepest sympathies to the immediate and extended family, as well as to the family of L.L. Rhamdanny and Company Limited on his passing. May he rest in peace, and may his memory be a blessing. And that has to do with the passing of a Grenadian patriot, an entrepreneur, a public servant, a politician who really served this country to the best of his ability. So we want to begin this first round of questioning by remembering the late Lyden Rhamdanny. So, Mr. Diali, I would start with you, sir.
Good morning, Karen. Good morning to your guests, and thank you for having me for this segment. Yes, I want to pay condolences to the Rhamdanny family in general on the passing of Lyden, and in particular to talk a little about Lyden. Chester and probably is of more vintage age to give more details on Lyden, but from my interaction with Lyden over the years before he passed, he was certainly a statesman, served at all levels when it came to Grenada, a politician, as you indicated earlier, entrepreneur, businessman, and of course, family man. And all of us have our strengths and our weaknesses, but Lyden brought to the fore his care for Grenada, Carriacou, and Petit Martinique, and never at any time in my understanding and in my interaction with him failed to help where he could his country and his fellow man. So, for example, my personal experience with him when I served in various capacities in Grenada in leadership roles, he would always find time to come and sit with me and have counsel and advise on areas where he thought I could have stated things differently or give a different opinion for consideration, which I thoroughly appreciated. And that was the kind of person he was. He always cared and cared for his country foremost, and of course his family and his business. As a businessman, he was very astute, keeping Rhamdannys alive over the many decades that he was there is not an easy feat in all the different economic challenges Grenada have had. And this is a company that have withstood the test of time. It's testament to him and his family and the way in which they managed their business throughout and helped the average man in Grenada based on the type of business that Rhamdannys was involved in. So kudos go to him and his family. As I said, it is a tragic loss. We have in recent time lost him, Michael McIntyre and Royston in Hopkins. That's right. And these three gentlemen were one of with Richard Strawn had started the airlift committee many years ago, and it just shows the strategic thinking and forward thinking, because that airlift committee has significantly impacted tourism in Grenada. And Lyden brought an international and regional flavor to us in Grenada in business, and was a guy that always had and interacted with businesses at various levels in the region and internationally, and brought their expertise and his expertise to us in Grenada when it related to investors that came to our country. So Karen, I want to put on record my deepest condolences to him and his family, and of course the loss we would have suffered in Grenada with him passing, and these other gentlemen in business and entrepreneurs like Michael McIntyre and Royston Hopkins. So, I hope that gives us some sort of thought of the way we must function as we all strive to live and make Grenada a better place to be.
Absolutely. I always call former senator. I think it should be
That's
senators
fine.
for life.
My former president is right there with you as well.
Your former president is right there. Mr. Humphrey, I want you to add to what Mr. Diali shared here. Of course, you knew Mr. Rhamdanny in a different capacity. We'll be having a much more full-throated segment with the Honorable Peter David, who also worked with Mr. Rhamdanny during the revolution. But talk to us about your relationship with him during that era, sir, Mr. Humphrey.
Well, first of all, Dr. Bob, I want to thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak
Yes.
to the public through your platform and, of course, platform which goes regional and international. Let me begin by saying that in this month, um, Grenada has unfortunately lost two, two stalwarts. The most recent is Lyden, and I don't think that Mr. Ramdhanny will take any objection to me calling him Lyden. I'll talk about him a minute. But secondly, another stalwart, Grenadian, coming from a different angle in the economy, is the late Robbie Robinson, who has been a trade unionist for all of his life. He was an outstanding public servant. He represented the labor movement well. He was the president of the Public Workers Union. He worked in labor relations in the early days of the industrial court in Trinidad and Tobago. He came here, he led the trade union movement here through the Public Workers Union in its more formidable days. After that, he went on to become a labor commissioner. And when he eventually retired from the service, he became the lone labor consultant, um, putting his expertise at the disposal of anyone who needed it, but particularly the business community. He had always been a very fair individual in his practice of industrial relations and so on, and a very respected individual. Now to my dear friend Lyden, who shared the same classroom with me at the GBSS way back when. I think it might have been in the late 60s. Yeah, the late 60s. Lyden and I were at the GBSS. We became very good friends and we became comrades, notwithstanding the fact that he was a Grenada businessman. And it's a point I want to make when the references are made to both Michael McIntyre and Royston Hopkins, because all of these gentlemen in the business field are genuine patriotic Grenadians. They are of Grenadian stock, and we are made up of different racial complexities. But at the end of the day, these are Grenadians, and they have been successful in business in a world dominated by international monopoly capital. And they have made Grenada proud. They've carved out a niche in the national economy as black people. Yes, Lyden's for parents came here as indentured servants, a form of semi-slavery, and rose from that to become a respected family business in the country. Lyden was a complex individual because one would ask, what does a leading businessman from a leading business family have to do with a revolutionary government? He was the right arm of Bernard in financial matters. He ran his business. He was very close to Cuba, very sympathetic to the Cuban cause, very sympathetic to the cause of working people, while at the same time being a businessman. It's a kind of contradiction that is almost impossible to overcome. But Lyden, as a person, was able to do it. I have never met a gentleman meeker, other than Chetty Jagan, that has had this meek personality. Lyden was never known to anger. You never knew that he was angry. You never knew that he was boiling up on any issue. He had and he kept that characteristic when I first met him in the GDSS in those often years. We became both personal friends and a source of intellectual exchange. He was a very well informed individual. And may I say, he broke a lot of the traditions from the socio-economic strata from which he came. But his family background arose out of the indentureship. And people would tell you that Father Ramdhanny, that's Amnaiden's father, um, was the kind of well, eventually owned estates, but he was a significant player in the nutmeg industry. And they would tell you that he was almost like a missionary, the way in which he dealt with black working class agro-proletarians, the way his business ran, somewhat just like L.A. Purcell. These are businessmen who arose in a period when institutional racism was still very much alive. And they were able to tread that social needle in such a way as to express a patriotism that involved all of the classes and strata of Grenada. And so it's a great loss. Our country has lost a great mind, right? Lyden may not have had all of the academic certification, but he had a depth of mind that Bernard Cord recognized and that Bernard Cord, with all his brilliance, relied on. And everything that has been said about Lyden, his contribution to nation building, his contribution to fashioning what I would be described as the Grenadian persona, because he personified the Grenada persona. Very quiet, very collected, very calm, very measured. I mean, I can't find enough adjectives. And I'm deeply, while I'm not religious, I am emotionally very distraught because I spoke to him recently. I spoke to him last month and the month before, and we spoke about some personal matters related to his health and so on. And again, his number one concern was what is going to happen to Grenada, what path is Grenada going to take, and discussing the implications of the new situation that has arisen in the United States and the reformulation of international diplomatic norms. How would that affect the Grenadian economy? The high youth unemployment. I mean, this was a guy with a lot of stuff, lot of very deep intellectual stuff that he was made of. So I'll use the opportunity, like my dear friend Chris has, to convey my deepest condolences to the family. And I hope that they will find the necessary strength in the fact that Lyden was a brilliant Grenadian who has left his mark, an indelible mark on the personality craft of the nation, and the fact the family successes is something that all of Grenada should celebrate. I salute his memory, I salute his work, and I thank him for the contributions that he has made.
Mr. Humphrey, thank you so much. And I'm sure Mr. Roberts, Mr. Vincent Roberts, I'm sure you would join in that chorus. I suspect you probably knew Mr. Rhamdhanny as well.
Yes, thank you very much. I knew Lyden more from a personal and family setting. And I will say that his demeanor, his calm and rational thinking is reflective of the family that he comes from. The entire family are known to be very calm. They do not get flustered quite easily, very rational in their thinking. And it is a great loss to their family, I'm quite sure, and to the people of Grenada. And I extend my condolences to the family and to the nation.
Gentlemen, thank you so much again. And what we want to do now is to pause for a moment of silence in honor of Mr. Rhamdhanny as well as Mr. Robinson, who also passed recently. May they rest in peace and may their memories be a blessing.